I can remember hearing about it on the radio. I can remember pictures of it and all the children and the burns and the skin falling off their bones. We did not have television at that time. We listened to the radio, and I remember newspapers. And then we would go to movies, and there would be these newsreel between the different feature films, and that's where I heard and saw pictures of the atomic bomb. Did not know anything about it beforehand. I did not know anything about the Nazis and the Jews. I knew about Hitler. I knew that he was the head of the German army. I saw newsreels of the young children and the concentration camps at the end of World War II.
You saw videos of the concentration camps?
Yes, I did. After the war. We did not see them before. I did not know anything about them during the war. I was fairly young at that time. I was only 5, 6, 7, 8 years old.
So when you saw those videos of the concentration camps after the war, what did they make you feel?
Sad. I remember crying. The people looked like skeletons. It showed pictures of them bulldozing the bodies into the trenches that were dead people that looked like skeletons. I mean, it was just horrific. I did not, at that point in time, understand that much about Jewish people. I knew Jews. One of my best friends at Chapel Hill, Mary Gaviota, she was a Jewish girl, and so I knew I happened at that time to be a Congregationalist in Massachusetts. So I knew there were different religions. I did not know the difference between the Jewish and the Christian religion at that point in time. I later found out. I've had many friends who are Jewish, and I love them dearly. I have many people who are Catholic, and I love them dearly. So I am a religious person, but I've been a member of about 6 or 7 different denominations, but I'm not really a denominational person. But it was a horrific incident.
How did JFK's assassination affect your life?
I can remember what I was doing. I was vacuuming, and my husband came home and told me that he had been shot. We lived in New Mexico at the time, and he was killed in Dallas, Texas. And so I did not feel a state responsibility, but I just cried. I was so sad. And he was so upset with me for being sad. He said, "You didn't vote for him. He was a Catholic." I said, "What does that matter? He's a man. He's got young children." I just was horrified by it. Later, we had television by then, of course, and they showed Oswald, the man who killed him, Lee Oswald, on the news, and he looked very much like my brother Eddie. And my brother Eddie is very much of a anti-authoritarian kind of a person. And I was just horrified that someone could do that, and that someone would do that. It was just, and it seems like that was the beginning. Shortly after, Martin Luther King was assassinated, Bobby Kennedy was assassinated, and it seemed like we lived in a different world, that the United States was not a safe place anymore. These assassinations had taken place in other countries, but our country, we'd had a few, Abraham Lincoln and a few others, but still I always felt that we were fairly safe in the United States. But from then on, and then 9/11 of course made it even worse. None of us are really ever safe.
During the 1960s, to what extent did civil unrest affect your life?
In the Chapel Hill, there were no minority schools. It was an all-girls school. There were no boys and there were no minorities. I remember the year that I went to high school in California, there was one black boy. He was there because he was blind, and we had an excellent program for blind students in that high school. It wasn't until I got to college that I really realized the minority situation. My father, since he traveled all over the world, my parents were very open. I had dated a Chinese boy at one time for a couple of months, And we had all kinds of people come and have dinner at our houses. And so I never was prejudiced at all, and my parents were not prejudiced. I know when I married Lou and we moved to the South, my mother told me, you keep your mouth shut for 2 years because the people in the South have a totally different idea about minority people. And so we moved in the 50s to New Mexico. And in New Mexico, there really wasn't much civil unrest. We had very few black people. We had a lot of Indians and Mexicans, but I don't remember there being many problems of any type. When Lou's mother and sisters lived in Houston, when we come to Houston, they were very prejudiced, and they would say very bad things about the black people. And I would contradict them and just, tell them that I didn't believe that. But other than that, I tried not to argue with them. I discovered Lou was very, very prejudiced. I was shocked, very, very unhappy to hear all of that. So I heard about it on the TV and saw it in the newspapers and was horrified that white people thought that they were so much better than black people. I really did not understand the Southern idea of black and whites. I really did not. I was horrified when what's his name went to the University of Alabama, and all the fighting and the dogs and all that kind of stuff, and when Little Rock was integrated and they had to have all the guards come to take the black children.
So do you remember MLK? How did you feel about him?
I thought he was an outstanding person. Martin Luther King was a rallying point, and I thought he was a brave person. I thought he had nonviolence. I really admired him greatly. I was sickened when he was assassinated.
Do you remember his assassination?
Yes, I do remember his assassination very, very well. It was a terrible thing. And I don't understand that hatred. I mean, I don't hate anybody, and I was not raised with that kind of hatred, and so I really do not understand it. I understand that it's based on fear, but when you're not raised with that kind of attitude, it's very hard to understand how other people can have that attitude that they're so much better than somebody else. I don't understand it.
Did you watch the first moon landing?
We did. In fact, we had a Polaroid picture of Neil Armstrong standing on the moon. We had a black and white TV. We were in Midland, Texas, and we'd go outside, and the kids and I would look up at the moon and think, he's this, and then come and look at the TV and the back of the moon. I mean, it was just absolutely astonishing. Absolutely astonishing. But we had about 4 or 5 years where we used Polaroid camera, but unfortunately all that film disintegrated about a year or two later, and so all the pictures that were taken of our family and of the moon landing and all of that disintegrated, and we have no film or anything of it left.
What do you recall from the Roe versus Wade court case?
Roe versus Wade was a big case. About the abortion, about legalizing abortion for women. And I, having had 3 children and not really living in small towns at that point in time, didn't know too much about people that needed abortions or had abortions or anything at all about abortions. What I read about it was when it was done, under the table, so to speak, by people that had no medical degrees whatsoever, that a lot of women were killed and injured, and that it should be done by medical people, and I agreed with that. So I was very happy when that passed. I was surprised. There was a lot of sentiment against that especially in the South, which is where I lived at the time, and but it did pass.
How did your opinion of Bill Clinton change after his sex scandal became public?
I thought he was a fool. I mean, I really felt bad about it. It seems like, especially men, get led around by their pants. And I think that's very unfortunate. By then, we had heard all about JFK and how he had been such a terrible womanizer. I think that with power, men think that they're beyond, bigger than life, and they don't have to abide by